So we're here with episode 2 of What's Left LA. I am Bret, also known as Cinemarxism on Twitch. Tofu, introduce yourself.
I'm Tofu. I'm known as Tofu Ghost with the 0 in the ghost on Twitch. And yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah, we started this podcast so that we could have a space to just kind of like chat about local politics, educate our communities on what's going on in our local scenes. We both live in LA, but I think there's a lot you can learn from this, even if you don't live in LA, about how to follow local politics. And especially tonight's episode, I think is gonna be, it's a story that really extends to like almost every part of city living life, like such a weird way. Policing, journalism, overreaches from the government. So we're really excited to do that. But first, we're gonna go over some local news for the last week. It's been 2 weeks since we had a project, but I think most of our news is only from the last week, right?
Yes. Just from the last week, we have the Oscars. I always get them mixed up with the Grammys. I wanted to call them the Grammys, but the Oscars this weekend. And the city came out in a lot of different ways. Inside and outside of the Oscars, we saw different forms of protest, but I thought we could possibly share just some highlights from the protests outside. And I don't know if you wanted to maybe even show just quickly highlight maybe even Jonathan Glazer's speech from inside.
Yeah, there's a lot going on both inside and outside for sure. Police activity was kind of going crazy. Just what I saw. A lot of like, I think in LA protests like lately, they're all kind of like downtown where nobody is even like really there. Like there's not really a lot of people that like live downtown. And they're usually on the weekends, so it's kind of going all over the place. But this week it's I guess I bring that up to say that like typically at pro-Palestine protests, like you don't see cops. That certainly does not mean that the cops aren't there. The cops are there, but they're in plain clothes, and they but there's not really like a police presence. It was very, very different for the Oscars. There were insane images of police, like riot police with batons and all kitted up in their riot gear, lining the red carpet, which I think is an image that will forever like stain the reputation of not only that event but what America is doing right now.
Absolutely. I'm trying to pull up here images of what you are talking about here. My goodness. Okay, we'll just do this. If you want to look at my stream, we got this little reel here from Reuters that I thought had is nice and short and gave just like a nice little overview of coverage of the pro-Palestinian protests outside of the Oscars. Outside the Oscars, hundreds of pro-Palestinian protesters gather.
Our government's involvement with the Israeli government attack on Gaza. I feel for the Israelis as well, and I want to make a distinction between Hamas and the Palestinian citizens, and I want the bombing to stop now.
I'm here to lend my voice to film workers in Los Angeles, as well as the Arab American community, and anyone who opposes genocide, to speak up against the U.S. backing of Israeli war crimes, atrocities in the West Bank, in Gaza, in Lebanon, and the illegal occupation, and to demand that our lawmakers and our government do more, and that members of the media and people in the industry who have a voice speak up, because silence is violence in this case.
Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Let Gaza live! Let Gaza live!
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great. I love that they interviewed that guy from like the. Yeah, that was a great. I love that they interviewed the guy from the IATSE contingent, because there was like a SAG-AFTRA WGA IATSE like film workers contingent as part of that protest.
Oh, really?
People who typically are not not highlighted, the actual like working class part of that industry, and to see them out there in force, not only showing solidarity with Palestine, but shutting down the biggest night of their industry at risk, of being spotted by any of the suits that are going into that event and never being hired again. It's an incredible bravery, solidarity.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm having issues finding any images for some reason of the red carpet and the cops. If you had anything.
Oh, I got that. Yeah, so there's a bunch of good reporters on the ground. If you guys are looking for like LA local reporters, John Peltz was out there. Some I like a lot, but here is video that I was thinking of. So yeah, if you look at here, I can.
Thank you.
Yeah. We have right here, this is the red carpet, and it's just like, stormtroopers just everywhere. So they lined both sides of Hollywood Boulevard with these fences, prevent any plebeian normies from getting anywhere near the red carpet. This was after, like, from what I understand, this was after like hours of cat and mouse games between the protesters and police as they like tried to reach this area. And it was eventually like this is the closest they got, essentially. But obviously you can see the city's response was violent. It was swift.
I'm Obama.
The very normal pattern of establishing free speech zones. Very, very nice and
very, very normal, very democratic society.
Yeah, exactly.
A perfect juxtaposition, though. The glitz and glamour of the Oscars and the suits, juxtaposed with the riot gear and the screams and the noise and the banging of drums and things like this.
Yeah. And actually, I mean, it's kind of interesting because the protests in a way were like pretty successful. I know I saw Variety, Hollywood Reporter, like a bunch of different like kind of the trade magazines were all like reporting during the show even that like the show started 6 minutes late, and it was definitely because of the protests, and the protests made it really hard for celebrities to get into the venue, and people were
there was
walking.
People getting out of their Ubers and their taxis and things like that, like blocks and blocks away, having to walk through crowds of protesters. And I mean, I think like before you even get into the building, being met with hundreds and hundreds of people in the streets calling for a free Palestine, and then once you get in and you're finally there and in your seat and comfortable, you're then seeing like something even as small as is still not worth. It's not something that you should disregard. The ceasefire pins, and then Jonathan Glazer's speech and things like this. I think that no matter who you were, if you went to the Oscars or if you paid attention to the Oscars, on TV or online, you were forced to reckon with or think about, at the very least, Gaza.
Yeah, which is we saw you mentioned Jonathan Glazer. I know that Rami Youssef also was wearing a pin and was mentioning Palestine a lot in red carpet interviews. I saw Mark Ruffalo like kind of rushing in late to the event. I think he showed up like as the event was starting, and he was like, "We're late because protesters shut down the Oscars. Like they prevented it from starting. The people win." Like so. It's always great to see people like demonstrating the moral clarity to be able to like to be able to speak clearly on that and to call it what it is. And not I will say obviously not enough. Like I wish there were more people wearing the pins. I wish there were more people that were like using this platform to say something of value, but we appreciate the ones that are, for sure.
Absolutely.
Also in this week's news, we'll kind of go through this quickly, but we have new election results. So if you guys watched our last episode with Chris Rail, which was a great conversation, we covered a lot of the local election races. That was before the election. Here we are post-election. Results are still coming in, but they are it's actually changing quite a lot, and in really interesting ways. So there are two city council races that I wanted to talk about: Isabel Urado and Julian Burgos. So Isabel is in CD14, and Julian is in CD2, I believe. And they are both going to be headed to a runoff. So those are two socialist, abolitionist, working class women. Isabel is a tenants' rights lawyer. Julian is a community organizer that works with a lot of organizations. They're both going to be going to a runoff election in November against pretty terrible opponents. So I think if those are two opportunities. If you live in LA, you want to get involved in making our city a better place and pushing for more humane policies around homelessness, more just policies around police funding. These are two races that I think you should really look into and decide if they're where you want to put your time. But personally, I can give a good endorsement here of both of these candidates are very both of these campaigns I think are going to be worth putting your time into. For doing campaigning and knocking doors or calling people, like it's hard work, but it's really important work too. So if you guys are interested, look up Isabel Jurado and Julian Burgos, both interesting. Also, another interesting part of this is that Isabel is running against Kevin De Leon, which if you followed LA politics at all, you'll know Kevin De Leon's name and infamy after he was recorded leading basically an extremely racist conversation about other city council members and cutting up the black parts of LA to lower the black vote in LA. So he is running again, and he's currently in first place in front of Isabel Jurado, but only by, from the last count that I saw, 26 votes.
It looks like it extremely close, so close that it and I'm blinking on the other names of people in that same race. Maybe you can help me out with that, but it looks like Kevin De Leon might not even be the top runner
we'll see
when all is said and done.
Yeah, we'll see. We do know that like the way that these the way that the votes get released, like the later votes, the later mail-in votes, are the ones that are being counted now, and those do tend to stray away from like establishment candidates and more towards like leftist candidates. We've seen that in this race as well, but yeah, you're right. It looks like it's kind of a 3-person race between Miguel Santiago, Isabel, and Kevin De Leon. So and Isabel and Kevin De Leon are both like they're neck and neck, but Miguel is like 600 to 700 votes behind both of the other two. Most likely it'll go to Kevin De Leon and Isabel, which I think is an awesome pairing. And like Isabel, it will take a fight, but I think Isabel stands a really good chance of winning that. But yeah, there is another like kind of more long shot possibility where Kevin De Leon doesn't even make it past the primary, and it's two incumbents, which would be fucking awesome. It would be I mean, even from these results right now, of all of the votes counted, 75% of people voted against Kevin De Leon. Okay,
70. Okay, I mean, if that isn't an indictment on like his record, then I don't know what is.
Exactly.
And,
yeah.
I mean, he should have resigned when his constituents called for him to resign initially. But if this isn't the message, you know what I mean, to finally really drive that home, then I don't know what it is.
Right. Other news in election politics, another result that's coming in and just getting worse is Alex Villanueva lost to Janice Hahn. No love for Janice Hahn. You know, she's an establishment cretin Nebo baby, but seeing Villanueva lose is not going to be so sweet. It just feels nice.
Feels so good.
And
he's so good.
Yeah, and he makes it so much better because he just can't stop posting his L's. So on Twitter, this is an amazing Villanueva tweet that I want to showcase here. We got actually two.
So is he unbanned?
Yeah, he got unbanned from Twitter, right?
Okay.
But two really incredible tweets here. Something doesn't add up. LA County RRCC registrar. Election results showed Janice Hahn winning the conservative vote. Now we know why the media didn't report pre-election surveys of LA County Board of Supervisor races. Like, he takes conservatives didn't vote for you. That is the lesson to learn here. Even the conservative vote didn't vote for you.
Yeah.
You understand? Like, he just can't understand why he lost so badly. He's picking fights with people in the replies. I'll spare you that. But not only is he just just stupefied about his losses, homie is Stalin posting. He's Stalin posting on the timeline.
Literally.
The head of the Los Angeles the former head of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, the sheriff, is out here saying losers use taxpayer dollars to bribe voters, conceal their crass nepotism, and then refuse to defend their record in a public debate. That's you, Janice Hahn. The people who cast votes don't decide an election. The people who count the votes do. Joseph Stalin.
Bruh.
He's saying he agrees with this, right?
Right. No, the people who cast the votes don't decide an election. The people who count the votes do. He's saying that Janice Hahn is Joseph Stalin in this.
Yeah. Right.
Situation.
Like Joseph Stalin, he's like Joseph Stalin was spitting when he said this, and look how true it still is. Like, no, dude. No, bro. You just lost. Nobody wants you in power. RIP to your entire career. The most unemployed person on the internet currently.
The most.
But yeah, you also have some news to share with us about an interesting story from the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department this week also, I believe.
Yeah. I'll pull it up on my stream here. I can't share screen because my stream will unfortunately.
It's all good. I'll pull your stream.
Okay. But we had this that came out I believe about 2 or 3 days ago. So if in case you needed more evidence to add to the heavily documented existence of Los Angeles Sheriff's Department deputy gangs, this just came out. This reporting from Cerise Castle at LA Public Press. Former LA undersheriff admits he had a deputy gang tattoo. Just there's no hiding it. After 2 years of Alex Villanueva also, so speaking of Alex Villanueva and Timothy Murakami, who is the former undersheriff in question here, defied, I should say, subpoenas from Civilian Oversight Committee, aka COC, I should say, Civilian Oversight Committee to respond to a hearing in about LASD gangs. After defying for 2 years, Alex Villanueva finally submitted in January, but Timothy Murakami finally just was ordered to appear in court or face contempt of court. And in this hearing, he admitted to having received the caveman deputy gang tattoo in the 80s, even though he had it removed 5 years ago. And in his words, he said it was due to bad press around LASD gangs was the reason why he got it removed.
Turns out when people discover that the cops are forming their own gangs and like requiring
People don't fuck
public
with it.
executions, like people don't like that. Isn't that weird?
It's
Like,
a little
it's just-
weird.
it's just bad press though. If you know,
But that's the only reason why. He wouldn't do it because he thinks that there's anything wrong with it, because he even said himself that like he doesn't think that there's anything wrong with any police officers having deputy gang tattoos. That also includes, on top of the specific deputy gang tattoos, like specific to their departments, like the East LA department, Compton department, et cetera, that also includes swastikas in tattoos like this. He's on record saying that these things are not a problem, that these things are totally fine.
Yeah, I watched Villanueva's hearing, and they asked him a similar question that I'm sure I didn't watch the Murakami one, but they asked him a question that I think that they're quoting in this one too, where they were like, would a deputy having a gang tattoo disqualify them from being hired, or and Villanueva very like adamantly was like, no, in fact that would be discrimination. We can't do that because it would be discrimination. And then so they followed up, so like he was like, logically, could you could you not hire somebody based on like a swastika tattoo or another racist iconography tattoo? And he was like, no, that would also be discrimination. It was an insane moment. But
yeah. Also on top of it, real quick, before it's just to wrap it up, during the hearing, Murakami also revealed that he knew multiple officers that had deputy gang tattoos were transferred out of the East LA and Compton departments while an investigation was being conducted into those departments after reports of like beatings at a party by banditos, deputy gang members. Also, at this party, Alex Villanueva was present. So when there was an investigation into this beating at this party that Alex Villanueva was present at, Murakami revealed that he knew that there were multiple officers that they were all aware that had gang tattoos, that they were transferred out before the investigation. So he was knowledgeable of these things happen, knew that they had gang tattoos, and knew that they were being transferred out due to, quote, bad press around LASD gangs. They wouldn't elaborate. During the hearing, Murakami would also not elaborate on how the investigation was unable to confirm the existence of these gangs, even though they knew these officers had those tattoos. Yep. And in regards to this same exact investigation, there is a former division chief Matthew Burson. Timothy Murakami confirmed having talked with Alex Villanueva about promoting the former division chief Matthew Burson to ranks one day before Matthew Burson received orders to not ask about the deputy gangs in this investigation into the Banditos gang beatings. So Murakami really just kind of revealed a whole lot. As if you needed any more evidence to confirm the existence of these gangs. It's kind of like irrefutable.
Yeah, it is. At this point, it's like so incredibly well documented that it is irrefutable. But I mean, again, like still nothing has happened. Like no changes have been made to LASD policy. No changes have been made to anything that would like prevent this from continuing. But anyway, we'll keep an eye on this. Hopefully everybody will Google LASD gangs and learn a little bit more. I want to bring our attention to our guest tonight. So our guest tonight is Ben Camacho, who is a award-winning journalist for Knock LA. Has been, reporting on policing and police in LA for a very long time. Somebody that I look forward to reading what they write. And he has a very interesting story that's been happening over the past few months with regards to a lawsuit that the city is levying against him. A independent journalist, or not independent with Knock LA, but this is how the city is treating journalists. I think this story is incredibly fascinating. It's something that I think he it speaks a lot to the way that liberals speak about journalism and this like all of these like ideals that they have about free speech and everything like that. And here we are in the blue democratic California, and this is how we treat our press here. So I think just things to keep in mind as we hear this story from Ben are the power structures that be the rhetoric of of liberals talking about like journalists and freedom of speech and everything, and what does that reality actually look like when faced with the lawsuit that Ben is facing. So let's see if we can just bring Ben in here real quick and have him tell his story himself. Hopefully he'll just be able to join in here. Oh, there he comes.
Boom.
Yo.
Hey,
Yo.
Ben.
What up, what up? Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you great. You sound awesome.
Cool, yeah, I got my headphones in. I'm doing the dual screen thing right now, but...
Yeah, you're good. Can you hear us well?
Yeah, I can hear y'all.
Cool.
Perfect.
So first things first, why don't you just give a little introduction to yourself for our
For
audience?
sure. Yeah, my name is Ben Camacho. I use he, him pronouns, based in Los Angeles. And I'm a documentary photographer. I'm the photo editor at Knock LA, investigative journalist, and I like to walk around. And that's me.
We all love a good walk. Yeah, so we brought you on. Can you just tell us a little bit about Knock LA and like what kind of reporting Knock LA does? What is like your role within Knock LA?
Yeah, so Knock LA is a nonprofit newsroom based in Los Angeles. I think we only publish online right now. And I would say we love good investigations at Knock LA, but we also like to prioritize, anything like related to LA, from culture to just current events, things like that, breaking news sometimes. Anything from politics, government, city hall, county, to police or slumlords or what have you. And yeah, so currently I serve as the photo editor there. I'm the first photo editor there, and kind of just trying to build the photo department from the ground up right now. And yeah, I think it's kind of the general idea of Knock. I think, and then I guess the last thing on that, like, we love to center the community in the stories that we tell. I think when you're reading a story on Knock LA, it kind of stands out because we do try to focus community in the stories. So that's why, it does kind of have like a Knock angle, when you compare to like other outlets in the area, especially like legacy outlets.
Yeah. And can you just maybe like, what was the story you were working on when you first filed the public records request? And can you kind of just like start the story? Where did it begin? And we can go from there, I guess.
Yeah, it's a crazy story. And so I'll give you all the long story. So essentially, okay, right on. So yeah, this all really began on Cinco de Mayo in 2021. I was on Instagram that night, and there was this video of a fight going around, like in my hometown of Santa Ana. And I was looking at the comments, and there was people saying that one of the people involved was a cop with Santa Ana PD. And so, me being who I am, I'm like, oh, you're a cop. Okay, cool. Let me, look into this. And so I started asking around, and I get a hold of the footage and stuff. And so, the next thing would be to obviously confirm that this guy is actually a cop. And so I ended up hitting up the city in Santa Ana and just, asking them if, they can confirm this is their employee or whatever. They were very tight-lipped about it, didn't respond or anything like that. But then I just kind of had this idea that, well, I have footage of this guy. If I could just have kind of like a little ID badge or something for him, then I could identify him myself, right? And so putting two and two together, I make the first cop headshot request for the city of Santa Ana the next day on May 6th of 2021. And that is probably about a month and a half later, the local police union, it's called the Santa Ana Police Officers Association, they file this what's called like a TRO, temporary restraining order motion in court, where they're essentially trying to get the city of Santa Ana to stop these photos from getting released, essentially, because the city had already communicated to me, hey, we're going to give you these because this is a lawful request. We're just going to redact undercover. You know, everything's normal. Everything that I was doing is normal, apparently. And so the Police Officer Association freaks out. We go to court, and then like a week or two after the first hearing, they drop the case. Photos get released, and I'm able to successfully ID the guy who was a cop. His name is now retired John Rodriguez. He was part of the Met Police gang that I ended up writing an expose about in the following year. And so just kind of immediately I was able to really see like the usefulness of having very clear photographs of police officers. And so that was in the summer of 21. And if you fast forward a bit to October of that same year, I was watching some of Film the Police LA's cop watch videos on Twitter and YouTube, you know, and I was noticing this pattern of police officers. This time now it's all LAPD stuff. And so I'm noticing that LAPD is, they'll ask, hey, what's your badge number? What's your serial number? Whatever, like, can you identify? And they'll either, flat out refuse. They'll pretend they don't hear you. They'll turn the other way. They'll, hide their badge, put their hand over their badge and stuff like that. And then in more like in extreme cases, they'll like shine a flashlight in the camera, and so you can't even film them at that point. And so coming off of like the Santa Ana request, and I'm seeing this kind of like pattern in the cop watch videos, I'm just thinking, well, fuck, I did it over there. Let me just do it here, and it's gonna be that simple, right? And so that was like October 2021. And then LAPD responded a few months after in the new year, it was January of 2022. And they say that they weren't going to give me the photos because there was 9,494 of them on analog, and they had to digitize them. And that was like too big of a task, so they weren't going to do it.
It's and very LA of them to still be shooting film. For the
amazing.
It was crazy.
They're still shooting 35 millimeter film. Like I'm imagining a cop with like a light meter out there, like really like getting into it. That's hilarious.
Yeah, they have like dude. This means that they have to have like a county, like a department dark room and things.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I don't know. So like, it's funny because like, I remember reading that response, and I was just like, okay, you're either fucking lying or. Like, you don't know how to digitize film, which is something like that Sammy's Camera does every day, that your local print shop does every single day, and you're telling me you have $3 billion and you don't know how to digitize film. And I just I was just pretty upset, not gonna lie. And so
it's also like it's laughable to like we're joking about it, but like it's laughable to think that they're still using film like in so many different reasons. Like that is just like
right.
There's no way
when we know that they show up to. Sorry, go ahead. Well, we see them with digital cameras in the wild all the time. Right. I mean, the gang units are always taking pictures of people, their tattoos at protests, they're videotaping. So come on.
Yeah, it was crazy. And like, I think at the end of it, I was just seeing like, this is bullshit, right? And so I found a lawyer. It was Shakir Rahman and Colleen Flynn. And they were just kind of saying like, okay, yeah, this case is pretty black and white. It's these are public records. They're just photos of cops. We were going to file this lawsuit. And so they helped me out pro bono. And let's see. So I think we filed. So that was January. I think we filed the lawsuit against the city of LA in must have been it was like probably early summer, late spring, maybe May, June, whatever. And then from then on until September, there's back and forth between my attorneys and the city attorneys. And just to highlight, there is at that time, Heidi Feldstein Soto was not in office; it was Mike Fear. So I just want to differentiate that. And so yeah, there's a back and forth between my attorneys, and I mean, so far there's signs that like yes, they are going to release. There's just details we got to hash out and things like that. And my request also, it was for not just the photos, but it was for a roster. So it was, I forget the exact wording, but it was like something along the lines of, the most up-to-date roster for LAPD include division, sworn status, badge numbers, first name, last name, whatever. And then the headshots for the same people. And so I gotta add, so in January, they did release the roster at that time, but they did withhold the photos. So when they were telling me that, we're not going to develop our film or whatever, they did give me the roster at that time. And so, fast forward, we sue, there's back and forth. And then around September, the city of LA is basically saying like, okay, we're almost ready on our end. We can't figure out how to send you 300 megabytes of data. So we need like help. And so I remember like, this is crazy. Like, not only are you probably lying about film and not knowing how to, digitize it, but now you don't know how to send 300 megabytes, like not gigs, not terabytes, like megabytes. These are like what, I don't know, like 10 iPhone photos these days,
Yeah, like you could attach that in a text message, no problem.
Literally, yeah, exactly. And I remember this day, I was just like, what do you all want us to do? My attorneys we're on the phone and we're like, what does this mean? And so we ended up writing I think it was like $6, $6 or $10, something like that. A $6 check to the city of LA to pay for a flash drive. So that
What?
I have the flash drive.
Wait, but why would you? Why did you have to pay for it? They don't have a flash drive. They don't have an IT department. What?
Well, he's the one inconveniencing them, like so.
They don't have like a P.
It's crazy, and I think there's kind of like weird like implications about the way that they did this that I can definitely get into after. But yeah, so we're just kind of like, okay, here's $6. Buy a flash drive and get the photos on there, I guess, right? And so I got a call on September 16th of 2022. My attorney saying that City Hall called, that I should go to City Hall. Everything's ready for pickup. So I drive over to City Hall, and it's over on I don't know if y'all know where the city attorney's office is, but it's like the annex part. So it's not like the main building of City Hall. But so I was like in my car in front of the annex part, and just kind of like waiting. And I think my attorneys let the city know that I was there. So like I didn't have like direct contact with them. So I'm just kind of like, my point is like, I'm just sitting there like waiting for somebody to show up. I had no idea what's going to happen. Some guy comes out of City Hall holding like a yellow manila envelope, like walks over to my car, and he's like, "Are you Ben Camacho?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Here you go." So there's the envelope, and he just walks away, and that was it. And so,
wow. And so at this point, they had already lost this. Like, what was the suit that you guys? So was it just like they were just like, "No, we don't want to release these," and then you went with your lawyers and said, no, you're actually obligated to release these. It's the law that you have to release these, correct?
Yeah, that's essentially what happened. I mean, whenever an agency doesn't fulfill a public records request that, in your best judgment and your attorney's best judgment is actually a public record, then the agency is in violation of the California Public Records Act. So at that point, you bring a lawsuit that's alleging that they're breaking that specific law. And then depending on the records, you put your argument saying like, photos are public records because they're already online. Like LAPD has been posting photos of themselves online for a long time. Anyone can take a picture. It's endless, the amount of stuff. And so, but yeah, that's essentially what you argue. And so I got this envelope, and I remember opening it, and the first thing in there is a letter from the city attorney. It's all printed out. It's like, I think it was like 1 or 2 pages, but essentially saying this record release satisfies our settlement agreement. These are the headshot photos. We printed a roster for you. The flash drive is in there with the data on there. And so look at the roster. It's like 90 pages long. It's the first time I realized how many cops are actually inside of the LAPD. There's a lot.
A lot.
And I also wanted to say, like, that's the names, the rosters. I can understand them wanting to, because that's pretty much public info already. Like, you can go to Mejia's like payroll database website and look up all that info, including how much they're paid and everything, even to that degree, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I haven't used Mejia's website myself, but I do know that there's like a lot of paid data and stuff on there. And I even think some of the, actually no, never mind. I don't know, but yeah, there's a lot of data on there. I haven't used it myself.
So they're really just concerned about the photos.
Yeah, that was the main thing. Because like I said, I mean, I do, but it's like at the same time, it's not something that I want to really like speak on, really, because it's a lot of bogus stuff. It's like it's a security concern. It's like it's invasion of privacy, but it's like it's really not. So
no, especially when it's the law that you're able to take a photo of a public safety officer in public. How does that make any sense?
Well, yeah, it's also like as a city, we're trusting these people to carry guns around us. Like, why would they want to hide their identity? You know what I mean? Like the identity of a person is like critical to accountability of that person in so many ways, right? And so like, I think that question of like why don't you want this publicized is very interesting.
Yeah, and you would think that like if let's assume, and this is a big assume, that the government or the local government has a strong vested interest in transparency, and let's assume that they want their police department to be trusted and things like that. And so if all of those things were true, they would have like handed those photos over immediately and been like, hey, yeah, work with us. You know who we are. We know who you are. We want transparency. Like you would think that like in good faith, which is like why when I hear all this talk about like transparency, especially like post 2020, it's like it's such BS, because it's like everything, especially that I've gone through and from like a larger pattern without in the United States on attacks on press freedom, it shows the exact opposite. Like we're going like the First Amendment is just, it's under attack from at the highest level, from cases like Julian Assange to local levels like for me or like other local journalists that are getting attacked or harassed. But
before we get too ahead of ourselves, you have the envelope, you have this flash drive. Where do we go from there?
I go home and I'm just kind of like, it's funny because I was just like, this is not real, it's like I had to sue. These photos are crazy, and like there's so many of them. I think the volume of like the amount of stuff that I got in this envelope, I was just like a little overwhelmed. I was pretty excited. Yeah. I was all fucking giddy in my car, like driving fast, trying to go home. And yeah, so I get home, I look at the flash drive, and before I plug it in, I'm like, these motherfuckers, like, I'm sorry, I'm cussing. Is that like
You're
are we
fine,
cool?
man.
All right, cool. Okay.
You're totally fine.
For sure.
There's no
so like right on. Okay. Yeah. Just gotta say that, right?
It's an easy rule,
So yeah, I'm looking at this flash drive and I'm just kind of thinking like, these fools like put something on here because they know I'm gonna plug it into my laptop.
Malware.
Yeah, basically. It's
I'd be scared too.
I was freaking nervous, not gonna lie, but I was just like, fuck it, plug it in, and my laptop like took a dump. Like it could not open it because these guys, whoever loaded this flash drive, didn't create like a parent folder and just dropped 9,310 files into the top of the flash drive.
Okay.
And so like it has to load. Like I don't know if y'all have ever dealt with anything similar like that, but like it takes forever for like your machine to like open something up. And like I'm just like on a little MacBook Air. Like I don't have a crazy desktop or anything. So
Yeah.
so I'm sitting there, waiting for this thing, and then the files pop up, and it's like they're all labeled. It's got their first name, last name, .jpeg, and I do like Command A, just make sure it's the same amount of names that are on the roster, and it is. And called my attorney, said like, hey, we got everything, and so that was September 16th. Around that time, the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition was aware of the public records request, and they had hit me up about the photos, and I was just like, yeah, sure, like these are public records. Who am I to gatekeep something like this? And so I gave them the photos. Somewhere, I forget what month that was, but I know it's like towards the end of the year. And fast forward to the next year, so now we're in 23, and it's March, like mid-March, probably around this time, actually. I think this week. The Watch the Watchers website is launched on Twitter. I see it first on Twitter, at least. And are y'all familiar with that site?
Yeah, but many people in our chat might not be. Always good to like read.
Yeah. So watchthewatchers.net is a counter surveillance project by the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. And the way I understand it is it's essentially a very user-friendly, a free and accessible database of all of the LAPD officers, their first names, last names, their city email address, their badge number, like all the data that I asked for is on there. And then there's also more data that I believe they sued the city for afterwards for more. I think it's like pay data or stuff like there's just like rows and rows of data for each officer, and I think the first iteration of the website was just like there's so many. If you go on the website, for those that are online right now, like just type watchthewatchers.net, and there's like so many cops in LA that you think of any name that you can think of, just type that first name in to the search box, and I'm like 9 out of 10 times like a cop with that name will pop up. And you can click onto that name, and it's kind of like it looks like a dossier for like sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. And I think the counter surveillance aspect of it, I think, is a very powerful framing, because when we think of like watch lists or like surveillance that government, whether it be local police or feds, that they always create dossiers on different people that they're watching, right? It's got their photo, their name, and some important information and stuff. And I think the fact that like when you click on each individual officer, you kind of see that format. It's like you're raising a mirror up to what they're doing to us. And I think that is just so powerful to see. And I think especially like if I was a cop and I see that they're holding like a mirror up to me, it's like, if I have any human left in me, I would think like, oh yeah, this is weird. Like I get it, Yeah. So yeah, there's several pages on there. I think nowadays there's like you can click through like divisions and stuff like that. So like if you're in, I don't know, if you're in Venice and then you want to see who your local, Venice cops are, you can find that out. Or you're at South Central, you're in Hollywood, wherever, and so. So yeah, this website drops.
And your involvement in this was really just handing over the public records files that you lawfully obtained from the city, and it was determined in a court that it was lawful at that time, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So
yeah, it was all through settlement, meaning both sides literally had to agree to this. Right. Meaning the LAPD, the city attorney all said yes, let's do this. So yeah, this website drops, looks like it goes viral on Twitter. And then immediately the next day, the police what's that called? The Los Angeles Police Protective League. It's the local police association. The president gets on TV, and I think it may have been Fox that gave him the first. That was the first interview. But his name is Jamie McBride, and he gets on TV, and he starts classifying these records as like a data breach or like a security breach or a data leak or something like that. Very just like the exact opposite of what happened, right? Straight up, yeah. And and then sorry, there's a siren. Let me know if y'all can't hear me.
Yeah, I hope it goes away and doesn't come towards
yeah.
Yeah, it's getting louder.
Right, yeah. It sounds like they're stopping outside the
Just gonna close the window.
Yeah.
So Fox, gives him this interview. He classifies it as this thing that it's not. And I think that is kind of like what starts this whole fiasco that I've had to live through. And so the timeline is a little weird here. I'm going to go very slow because it's just, it's a lot. So essentially, after that first interview where the police union gets on TV, they file like an official complaint with the LAPD against then Chief Michael Moore. As we know, he just he says he retired, but in my opinion, he was fired.
Yeah.
So Michael Moore and the director of the Constitutional Policing Office, Lizeth Rhodes, who I don't think she's a sworn employee, but I don't know if you're all familiar with what that office does, but to my understanding, they kind of like weigh what LAPD is doing and their policies against like the Constitution and see if like they're within the bounds of where they're supposed to be. And
yeah, it sounds kind of like oxymoronic
terrible
by name.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But,
so the police union submits a complaint against these folks, and I think a couple other people within the LAPD, but it's mainly directed at them too. And that's on Friday or like over the weekend. And I think by Monday or Tuesday the next week, the same police union has filed a lawsuit against the city of Los Angeles. And in that lawsuit, they're essentially demanding that the city, quote unquote, do something about this. And so what does the city do? They turn around and sue me and the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition for something that they did. And I think
at
that
this
was...
point, were there any like in the settlement that was decided earlier that got you the photos released? Were there any stipulations on how you could use the photos? Was there any like restrictions like No, right?
No, nothing. And the reason for that is because these come through a public records request, and so like you can't put a limit on like what someone can do with a public record, right? So
okay, and so they file a lawsuit against you saying basically to destroy all the photos, right?
They say actually opposing things at one point, but the first like instance is essentially them saying Ben Camacho and the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition are in wrongful possession of the city's property. And that was the first week of April where we get sued. One of the worst days of my life for sure. But having like people rally to me, just kind of already offering support that same night was just, it really meant a lot. And like I didn't even have to look for legal support. Like my attorney like called me and they were just like, hey, like, we need to talk essentially. And so they sue me, and then I think my attorney that night we met up in person. The editor of Knock LA is there, Cerise Castle, and we're all just talking, and essentially Susan Seeger, my attorney, is saying, kind of laying out what this case means and stuff, like, because I have no legal background, I'm just like a local dude, and so she's kind of like spelling out what exactly is at stake here, and so kind of hearing it from her, it at the end of the day, she asked me, she was like, what do you want to do? You either give the photos back right now or we have to fight this, And so I just told her, like, we should fight this, because what's at stake is the free flow of information in the United States, especially in California. And I'm happy to talk more on the implications of all this too. So we end up, we say we're going to oppose this lawsuit. And so we file what's called an anti-SLAPP motion. And for those that aren't familiar, an anti-SLAPP is essentially where, and SLAPP meaning with two P's, it's an acronym. It stands for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation, which essentially is saying that, so this lawsuit against me is a SLAPP suit because it's an entity, in this case, the government, trying to get me to stop asserting my rights or using my rights, whatever that may be. In this case, it's like freedom of speech in the press and using public records. And so we filed an anti-SLAPP, which is essentially calling out the lawsuit to begin with and being like, hey, this is an abuse of the court. This is frivolous. We are asking the court to throw this out. And so there's 3 hearings that happened last year regarding this case. The first one, it's the same thing as the Santa Ana Police Officers Association tried doing, the TRO, the temporary restraining order. That's where the city is trying to ask the court to demand that, or to issue an order that me and the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition cannot further distribute the photos or the data that we've received. So it essentially freezes everything, right? The city showed up to court with 0 evidence of any of their allegations, and so the judge was like, "Yeah, we're not this. We can't help you," and so they lose that hearing. The second hearing is, I think it was called the writ of possession, where the court was going to determine whether or not the data, the photo, the records, everything, is property of the public, or if it actually belongs to the city. And then again, the city showed up to court with 0 admissible evidence that there were. Oh, sorry. I gotta add in the thing about the undercovers, because that's a huge part of this whole thing. And so, right away, if we go back to when I'm getting the first week or so, first couple weeks of Watch the Watchers, there's this very, very powerful narrative that basically the cops are saying there are undercovers that have been released in this data drop, and that really is kind of the point of contention for the government. They're like, oh, this is really bad. There's undercovers. This is where this whole language of a data breach, a security breach, where this is dangerous, where people are in danger because of this. That's where that comes from. So when we get to the second hearing, and the city already failed to show any evidence that there are actually any undercovers exposed in the first hearing, we get to the second hearing where they had another chance to show evidence of this. They show 0 evidence of such. And so the court is like, yeah, this, you guys are really not, we can't help you here, you're not bringing in anything to support what you're alleging, that there are undercovers that are exposed here and that this is all an accident, supposedly. And so they lose the second hearing. The third hearing is where shit got crazy, because that is where the anti-SLAPP motion was going to be heard. And so it's essentially where the court was going to be like, okay, now we're going to consider this anti-SLAPP motion. We're going to consider if we should toss this lawsuit out, And so we get to this court hearing, and both sides argue. This is my first time going to the court hearing in person, and it's pretty intense. They pulled a retired judge off the bench to oversee this hearing, because for some reason the other judge wasn't available or something like that. It was really weird. Never really understood why, but
The homie of the city's lawyer, probably.
I mean, I don't want to say that, but it was just really weird. So at this point, the city is then they're like approaching the argument. They're trying like a different angle on their argument, and so what they're saying on this hearing is that, because well, if we go back to the first lawsuit where I sued the city to get the photos,
right,
and then you think of the settlement agreement where like it says like we're going to the city says we're going to redact undercovers. Undercovers will not be released. Like that was supposedly part of the agreement. And because like the narrative was there are undercovers, the city was arguing that I broke that first contract when I received the photos because there are undercover photos. Does that make sense? So
I mean, I understand what they're saying, but also my question is obviously how would you know who is undercover and who is
right.
And if I heard correctly, that was a part of the initial agreement to have for the initial release was that they wouldn't even be included.
Yeah, that was their responsibility to remove them, right?
Yeah.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And so the judge hears this, and I see him like nodding along, and I'm just kind of like, oh fuck, like he's listening to them, you know. And it's like a crazy. I'm just like, wow, like this is. I guess why people go to law school to lie about things. I don't know, but like they just completely, you know, spun it in such a very like weird way, and the judge was like nodding along, and I'm like, okay, he's listening to them. And so I think a week or two later, he issues his opinion on it. And so in the opinion, he basically agrees with the city, saying like we're not going to toss this out because Camacho is in breach of contract because he does have these undercover photos. And that was crazy because like this is after like a national media coalition signed submitted what's called an amicus brief, or like a friend of the court type of thing, filing, where like the Associated Press, the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press, First Amendment Coalition, like LA Times, like crazy, like super like media like associations like signed this thing saying like, hey court, like you need to dismiss this because like just on the facts, like this is unconstitutional what the city is trying to do.
Yeah.
And so that's where like the term, you know, claw back comes from. Like the city was trying to claw back these photos. That's to say like they're out in the public, you know, domain. They're on the internet. I found them on like servers located in like all across the world. If you're familiar with how torrents work, and
right.
for those who aren't familiar with torrents, it's like they're essentially servers all over the world. If you want to share, it's like a file sharing system. You upload files to a torrent server, and then the torrent server kind of like tears them into trillions of pieces and distributes them to all the millions of computers all over the world. And that way you essentially, as long as one of those computers exists after the world ends, then you can still retrieve that file, right? They've been torrented several times. Internet Archive has that. All this to say, like, these photos aren't getting clawed back, even if the government really tried, right? And so, sorry, I lost my train of thought. And so, so the judge rules this way, and so this is like a huge red flag. And this is where we're starting to like really think about like, whoa, like this is censorship, what the government is seeking, and the specific type of censorship is called prior restraint. And so, if y'all aren't familiar with the Pentagon Papers, that was it's probably one of the most influential cases in all of like U.S. history, where essentially it's back in the 70s, Vietnam War is going on, and there's a military officer who steals intelligence information. That's to say, a military officer literally like takes military intelligence, top secret documents, steals them from the government, and gives them to the New York Times. The New York Times is like, whoa, crazy shit, we want to publish this. Yeah. The government's like, wait, don't publish that. That's national security. That's like, you're going to endanger people. And so this case ended up going to the Supreme Court. And in the case of like the highest like level of like threat, where like, national security, these are like actually stolen, these are literally military intelligence, even the Supreme Court was like, yeah, the press has a right to publish these because there's
course.
strong public interest, and that's called a prior restraint, where if the Supreme Court had ruled no, they can't publish them, that's a prior restraint. But here we are with records that were given to me that have no national security implications, that are theoretically, if every cop lined up on the street, I could just take a picture and get the same thing. Like, these are public records, and here's a local judge saying that a prior restraint is valid in this case. And that's where the slippery slope is. That's why this case is so dangerous, because it could set a precedent for public records and the free flow of information. Because if the court ends up, if the government ends up deciding that a prior restraint is valid in my case, it means it would set case law that would say that every single image of a police officer in the state of California is essentially a government secret. And that's a de facto way of having a secret police force.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. Like, and we should be questioning the reasons why, they are even interested in a secret police force. Like, what you said about transparency earlier was like incredibly poignant. Like, of course, like if they really cared about this and they really wanted to govern in a way that was not adversarial, if we wanted a police force that, was accountable to its citizens, none of this would be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's like directly counter to any rhetoric about like community outreach that comes from the departments or from the city, for that matter.
Yeah, but I mean, all these community policing programs, in my opinion, they're just surveillance. It's like how they surveil little kids at this point,
Yeah. And so how has like the journalism community at large kind of like, how have they responded? Have they been supportive?
Yeah, so I would say pretty much like across the board, I've gotten a lot of support. I know there's kind of, journalism is so weird. I hate journalism, but like, there's definitely like an old guard and a new guard type of thing happening. And I think for just forever, like journalists have gatekept information, and just like, and even within the industry, there's a lot of gatekeeping. So I bring that up because when old guard journalists hear that I just gave away records just like that to members of the public and didn't like necessarily write a story and then release, like I just kind of like grab them and put them out type of thing, like some folks have an issue with that apparently. And so in my opinion, like I don't see that. Like, I understand, because it's like, okay, yeah, we're journalists, we're supposed to be the filters of information, whatever. Like, fuck that. Like, this is a public record. It literally has, the public's name on it. And so
yeah, I can see what they're saying, that like, it wasn't like contextualized or something like that. But I guess like that's it's, for one, it's a very like narrow view of what journalism is and what it can be. And two, even if it's not journalism, you know what I mean? I think that distinction is kind of like, it's kind of like not relevant in a way. Like the resource of Watch the Watchers is like, is an incredible resource that should exist. And like whether or not it's journalism, quote unquote, I think is kind of like ridiculous. But the implications of your lawsuit and the, if that were to go through, like the implications of that are very clearly a threat to journalism across the board. You know what I mean? On the other hand, like it's weird.
Yeah. And I think I would say like what you're saying is the like majority of how journalists see this, because like I've had like the Freedom of the Press Foundation like they just wrote an op-ed about my case, and like which is to me like that's a fucking honor. That's like Edward Snowden's like.
I was looking at it here.
Organization, and so it's like those are indicators that like people are understanding that like a prior restraint is one of the most like dangerous things that a government can like have in their pocket essentially. And so there's like that issue with like secret police, and then even more there's kind of like two prongs on the implications. There's the secret police aspect, which like we could spend a whole episode talking about, like, but the second aspect is essentially what it means that the government can, like, so it would mean that any public record the government would, or at least in the state of California, the any agency would have, could cite my case if we lose, could cite my case and be like, oh yeah, we don't want that out, we're gonna take that back. They would essentially have a stronger arm to claw things back with.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and we haven't really gotten to this yet, but there's a new civil suit against you that would hold you personally responsible for the LA Police Protection League, you know, their lawsuit against the city would hold you responsible for the damages of it, right? Which seems like that, like at that as precedent could be like, why would any major newspaper report on a story that could potentially expose them to that kind of, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's meant to, like, a term that I hear lawyers say a lot is like chill the press, which is like, you know, it chills your rights. It makes you scared. It intimidates you. Because especially like, if you're just an indie journalist like me, if you work for a small publication that, you know, is not the LA Times, is not friggin' NBC, whatever, and y'all get sued because you published some public records and it was like a good story, it was impactful, and like, you know, the government can just be like, okay, not only are we going to sue you to claw these back, but we're going to hold you responsible for any damages to any of our employees or any, you know, whatever they're alleging and stuff like that. And
despite how like abstract that even is, well, what are these damages and how would you make the damages better? Like, what exactly is that mean? What does that mean?
Money.
That's
all it is.
That's of dollars, right? I mean,
yeah. And so I guess we're kind of getting at to like one of those really, if you really zoom out on these cases, on these two cases. So, and just to say, on the second case with where the city's trying to hold me financially responsible, it's technically it's like completely separate from like what happened last year. So there were, I think now it's like 600, 700 or so cops that have sued the city of LA, and they're saying like, we are the cops that got exposed, we're hurt, please pay us. Like that's what's happening in that lawsuit. And so the second time that I'm getting sued in that lawsuit, the city is like, okay, we might be on the hook to these cops to pay them for their tears. We're gonna make Camacho and the coalition pay them whatever we're gonna owe. And I think if we go back, we consider both cases and like how just absurd both of them are. This is like, I don't have like a real, like any evidence for this, but I think about sometimes how like the city always knew that they had to give these photos out, and so they always knew that there was going to be some type of scandal because cops don't like getting, you know, a mirror held up to them. And so it's almost, and thinking about how the city attorney the now city attorney Heidi Feldstein-Stoto is loves police officers, and believe has received funding from the Police Protective League. I think about how like she probably was just like, oh, this is my chance to get my boys paid. Like, I'm gonna sue the journalists, they're gonna sue the city, and then we're gonna make the journalists pay them, and it's gonna be great. We're all gonna have a party and stuff. Like they see it as a giant cash cow. This like I think deep down Heidi knows that she can't win these cases. Like it's insane. All the laws like are stacked against her. But why is she continuing them? It's so her people can get paid.
Well, I was gonna also ask. I mean, according to like, I'm looking at these Freedom of the Press Foundation, like the coverage of you. It's like there's precedent at the Supreme Court for different cases. If I'm reading this correctly, four different cases. Yeah,
prior restraint.
So prior restraint. Excuse me. That creates precedent. Like how how confident can they really even be? And also, is that kind of also the point, because it's kind of a win-win maybe, where either they win and they, it's a cash cow, they get to just drain your pockets, or they lose, but whatever, they fucked up your like months of your life, and cost you money regardless. If they got their hands on the money, they cost you money and they punished you. Like how what do you think the chances are, given that like prior like that legal precedent that this goes forward?
And what is the risk too for you, like if it were to lose?
Yeah. And so Tofu, your question is sorry, can you repeat your question?
I'm sorry, that was was all over the place.
You're good.
It was all over the place. How what do you think the chances are of
them winning,
of them being successful, even given the prior precedent? Yeah.
I don't have like a straight answer. Whenever and I think about this a lot. Whenever I think about this, my brain is like, I fucking got this. Like the Supreme Court 4 times, the fucking
4 times champion.
Yeah, exactly. Like the freedom of the press, First Amendment. Like I got this. But then like there's always that like 1% like back in my mind that's like, what if? Like what fucking if? And I think just because like I am literally in this situation, I can't let that 1% go, because I'm like, okay, if like fucking Mercury's in retrograde and judge is like, okay, Ben Camacho's guilty, and like everything goes to shit, like I have to like, I don't know, be somehow prepared for that. I don't know, like I don't know what happens at that point. Like I've been asking around, like what if I lose this case? I have like $10, like I don't know what to do, and they're gonna, and so people are saying like you probably have to file for bankruptcy, and like the bank will forever own like anything that like is on, like you have your name on for the rest of your life, because I'm assuming the settlement that's going to be in that second case is going to be in the millions, because it's over 400 500 cops, and if each of them is saying give me $100K or $200K in damage, like that's a lot of money. It's the city of LA, they got billions in the bank. So so yeah, I don't know. I wish I had a better answer. It's just like I don't know. I want to say 99%, like we're gonna win, it's in the bag, and a lot of people do tell me that, and I'm just kind of like, all right, let's manifest it, but like I gotta hold on to a little 1% just in case like shit really hits the fan. Brett, sorry, I forgot your question.
No, you kind of answered it. I was just gonna I thought it was like really aligned with what Tofu was saying, but I was just wondering like what would be what is the risk to you? Like what happens if you lose? What happens? Which you answered great. So I think we loved having you on. I want to respect your time. It's already pretty late, but I do want to ask what can people do to support you, or is there anything you want to plug? Like I think everybody in the audience has been really like shocked and moved by this story, and I'm glad, because it's definitely something we should be paying a lot more attention. So what can we do to support you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say just like keep following the case. I post mainly all the updates about the case on Twitter X. I'm on there at Ben Camacho 0. I'm on Instagram on there posting updates too. Second thing I would say, support Knock LA. We are currently trying to separate from our parent organization to have full autonomy over our editorial process.
Okay.
We're going to hold a CPRA workshop to just help educate folks on public records. That's going to be in person. I'm happy to talk there. It's going to be live streamed. Keep an eye out for that. But yeah, honestly, just follow the case. Like it honestly means like a lot to me that like people pay attention to this stuff, because like not only does it suck, but also like it's cool to like hear like that people are aware of like what's going on, because like this is how like our democracy works. This is how like this is why we can say things and not like get in trouble for them. You know, we have freedom of speech and freedom of the press, but like these are blatant attacks on those things, and I think we should just be aware of them. And you know, if it comes to it, like let's organize against them. There's also a hearing in like 2 weeks for the second case where it's an anti-slap, where we hopefully will get it tossed down. I don't have to pay shit because I shouldn't have to pay shit. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on, Ben. We really
so much.
appreciate it. I think it was a great episode. Great hearing your story. I hope I can see you around sometime.
Yeah, hit me up. I'm always around, and thank you so much for having me. Super glad to chop it up with y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We got links in the chat, everybody, in both
links
chats.
in the chat.
We got Ben's links. Go follow.
Right.
Go follow. Go support.
Right on.
All right.
Thanks, y'all. Take care.
Ben.
All right, Ben.
Ooh, that was a good one.
Amazing.
What a
That's
banger.
such a story.
Yeah, incredible story. So many important implications and like, holy shit, bunch of risks.
Mm-hmm.
Damn. Okay, well, Tofu, thank you so much for having me as always. This is such an awesome project to be doing with you, especially. We love
the
Tofu.
honor is all mine, sir. The honor is all mine, sir. Birthday boy, birthday week haver, birthday week enjoyer.
What do you got planned for us tonight? You doing reacts or what?
We're probably just gonna we'll do a little bit of our normal headlines, do some news, top US and world headlines, and then maybe do some gaming. I'd like to do some gaming.
Hell yeah. We're playing Fortnite.
What about
Hit
you?
me up.
Oh shit, you tryna? Are you gonna be?
I could do some Fortnite. All right, if you guys wanna, if anybody watching this wants to, watch Tofu and I play Fortnite or cover local politics or national politics, we cover a bunch of stuff on our Twitch pages. I'm at Cinemarxism. It's spelled how it sounds, like Karl Marxism and cinema pushed together. And then Tofu is Tofu Ghost with a 0 as the second, and the O. The O in the Ghost is a 0. Please come and hang out and support us. Say hi in the chat if you hear this. Tell us where you found us. We're gonna have these up on YouTube eventually.
Yeah, we still gotta figure that out. But
no,
yeah,
it's good.
hopefully.
It's good to build up a backlog. You know what I mean? So
I think that's a good idea. Yeah. Good
all
point.
right. Thank you so much, Tofu.
All right, man.
Have a good night. Take care.
You as well. Catch you later.
See ya.